also permission limits app access to sensitive data that may affect other external app operation. For example, you may be having your application and then you want to use external operation like accessing users' location. So in order for you to access user location that will affect another application, which is the Google Map app, then you will first have to declare permission for you to get access to that feature. And then also permission provide access to sensitive data. Permission provide access to sensitive data outside the sandbox environment. So sandbox environment is the environment where the application is being run on. So whenever you run your application, these other things like maybe camera are not always within that sandbox environment. It is usually external. So permission allows you to access those external features within the sandbox environment. So how permission control user privacy and access to sensitive data? So permission gives you these three main points. Like it gives you control, it gives also user transparency, and there is data minimization. So what is control? Control is whereby a user is able. Sorry guys, let me see why there is that. Can you hear the background noise?
No.
Okay, if it's not affecting, okay. So permissions provide these main 3 points. So there is control, there is transparency, and then there is data minimization. So control is whereby you are able to, you as a person or you as a user who uses that application, you are able to allow, give acceptance to that permission, or even deny it if you don't want it to be used as you work with the application. Then transparency is whereby these permissions enables you have the knowledge that a certain feature like map or even camera is used within this application. Like it gives you knowledge, you have an idea that a certain feature is being used within the application. So when you have knowledge, you are able to know that even when there is a leak of data, you are able to know that there was a certain permission that you had accepted that maybe had caused data leakage. And then there is data minimization. So data minimization is whereby the permissions only allows you to work with the external data that you require within your application. You cannot use other features that you don't require within the application. So you only use what you need. So that's another thing that permissions enables you to do. So for those 3 points, that is how permission like protects user privacy and also controls access to sensitive data. And then now we're going to dive in the permissions type. So permission are mainly, they're like, I know the 2 major ones, that is install time permission, and then we have the runtime permission, and then we have special permission. So for install time, they're also divided further into 2. So we have normal permission, and then we have signature permission. So install time permission, they allow access to data beyond the sandbox area, but only the less sensitive data like internet access. So I've told you what is a sandbox area. Sandbox area is whereby when you run your, it is I can say like a container where the application is being run. So install time application, they give access to that less sensitive data to be used beyond the sandbox area. And these less sensitive access permissions are like the internet access. You see, when you give internet access, I don't think if there is any data leakage or even private or even sensitive information that can be leaked through it. And then also, install time permission, they grant access to your app when the user install the application. Like once you've already declared an install time permission, this permission will be granted whenever the user installs the application. There is no dialog that will be replaced to show user that he or she is supposed to allow certain permission to be used within the application. And then also the install time permission, I've said we have the normal permission, and then we have the signature permissions. So the normal permission is simple, like the internet access permission. They're just the less sensitive permissions that are used beyond the sandbox. And then the signature permissions, this mainly occur for applications that are signed with the same signature. Like I can say maybe an organization is signing maybe an app that is built for communication within an organization. So they might be signed with the same digital signature. So there is a permission can be declared to allow communication between these two apps, but within the same organization. So that is the signature permission. So this is how a signature permission can be declared in the application. So we have the sender part of it, whereby you declare it's similar to the way you could declare the internet permission. But now the recipient part, you are going to declare the permission and then give it the name and then the protection level, that is signature. So when the two applications have been signed using the same digital signature, then the permission will be applied within the two applications. And then now we have the runtime. We have runtime permission. So runtime permission, they control access to more sensitive data that are related to user privacy. So these permissions, they're like location access, camera, yeah. So for runtime application, these are permissions that are usually requested at runtime. That is when the app is running, so that user have that capability to accept this permission to be used within the application, because this permission, they access those sensitive data, like for instance location and camera. And then runtime permission, another name, they're also called dangerous permission. Yeah. So we also have something called permission groups. And permission group, I can say they are a set of logical related permissions. For instance, an example is maybe if you have permission to write and to send SMS, this permission, they can be grouped together. So when they are grouped together, they help to minimize number of system dialogue that are presented to user when an application requests for permission. So there is this concept of permission grouping, like when two permissions are seen to be related, they can be grouped together to minimize that the system dialogue that allows user to accept this permission to be used within the application. So next, I'm going to talk about permission evolution. So I'm going to talk about the pre-marshmallow and the post-marshmallow model. So marshmallow is a name for Android 6. So how permission was being handled before Android 6 and how permissions are now handled after Android 6. So to start, let's start with the pre-marshmallow, that is before Android 6. So before Android 6, actually the permissions were requested at install time. That is, if you had any permission that would require your application to use, whether it's internet access, whether it's location access, whether it's camera, file, yeah. So you would request that permission at install time. That is, the permission had to be accepted by the user before the application is installed. So with this model, there was poor user experience because the user would just have to accept all the permissions without necessarily knowing even if they are going to be used within the application. Also, there was I can say there was also no transparent. Yes, there was like kind of transparency. Yes, user knows that have accepted this permission, but there was no data minimization whereby you could just accept the permission, then you end up not using it within the application. So that is how the pre-marshmallow model was working. You had to request the permission had to be requested at install time, and then all of them had to be accepted before the app is installed. And then next, we now have the post-marshmallow. So the post-marshmallow there is control. Control is whereby now there is, even after you've already installed the application, the user can then get that dialog for accepting or rejecting the permission. And then we have the permission grouping. I've talked about it, whereby permissions that are seen to be related can be put together. And then we have the revoking permission. Revoking permission is whereby if you don't want to use to accept, maybe if you don't want to accept that permission, you can just deny it. There is no, you can just deny it. And then we have permission dialog improvement. That is the dialog that is being being displayed to the user interface. It has been improved and it's look more presentable. And then we have system permission. This is whereby now permissions that are more related to system and permissions that are more sensitive have been moved to the system level. I don't think if I have an example, but I can maybe something like location, I think, background access or even foreground access. There are those permissions that are so sensitive that have been moved to the system level. Like you can find out how you are accessing location permission in, I can say Samsung is different to how you are accessing location permission in Techno. And then we have one-time permission. One-time permission is whereby you can just accept this permission to be used for a single period of time. Then when it's not in use, or even when the application has stayed for long without using it, it will be reset back. And then we also have the auto reset permission, whereby if you stay for long without using your application, the permission will be reset back to default. So that is the post-marshmallow model. That is now how permissions have been handled after Android 6. Yeah. So the implementation bit of it, I have like an example in Android Studio. I think I did the best example I thought I could do at this level. So let me share my Android Studio. Yeah. Yeah. Is it visible? Or should I increase the font size?
It's okay.
Okay. So the example I did was to request for camera permission, and I have a couple of composable and a couple of composable. Yeah, to explain on how you can go about declaring the permission. I don't think I didn't follow most of the code pattern, so I just did like the permission bit of it. So to start, I have this first composable that you can use to request permission. So within it, we have the permission launcher. So the permission launcher actually it's meant to launch the it's meant to trigger the permission and to it's meant to trigger the permission and to enable that dialogue to be shown on the user interface. And then it has two bits of it. You can either accept the permission or even deny the permission. Then before that, you have to check the permission status. That is, if the permission was granted. And to check the permission status, we do use the context compact, and within the context compact, we have this function that is called check self permission. So this check self permission would enable you to see get the permission status and then check if the permission had already been, if the permission is granted. Then if the permission is not granted, on that case, you can using the permission launcher, you can request for the permission. And then I have the rational part of it. The rational part of it, that is, if you really need to use this application, but then the user decides to deny it. Sometimes user can be cheeky. So you can decide to show them an alert dialog for giving them, allowing them to retry to access the permission, and allowing them to retry and to retry the permission. So on retry, you still use the permission launcher to relaunch to show that dialog, and if they really don't want it, they can cancel. So for that, after now having this permission request, I had to use it in this permission in this request permission with setting dialog. I had to use it in this request permission with setting dialog. That is, sometimes user can just decide to deny the application completely. So if they don't want to accept it within the application, then you can direct them maybe to access the permission on the setting of the phone. So that's why I had to have this request permission with the setting dialog. And then now on that, I first call the request permission, and then if the user had denied the permission, then I'll have to show him that the application needs to use this permission, please grant it, and then I'll direct the user to the settings screen, to the phone setting to allow permission for that application. So once I have my application, how am I now going to use it within my code base? So here I have, like I told you, this was mainly for camera permission. So I have my composable here. So on this composable, I have this variable that checks if the permission is requested. So if the permission is requested, I'm going to launch the request permission with the setting dialog, so that it will be able to handle the case when user decide to completely deny the permission. So once I launch that, then a user is going to accept the permission, or even if they don't accept it, they can be directed to the settings screen and for them to accept the permission. Then once they have that, now they can capture the image from their camera once they have accepted their permission. And then on this camera preview, this is another composable where now they capture the image, and then the image is stored on like an image view on the screen. And then if the permission was not granted, then you are going to, like, if you run it for the first time and you haven't granted the permission, then the screen will just have a simple text that shows camera permission not granted. And then we have this button that allows you to request for the camera permission. I don't think if I run it, hopefully it won't take time. Let me just try running it. In the meantime, anybody with a question?
Yeah, if you have any question, I guess you can just unmute so that Brandy don't shift in between the tabs. So yeah, if you have any question, you can unmute. Maybe Brandy, you can address the question on the chat box. Sorry, Mkao is asking. He's saying, I'm here for banking apps security permission side. Hope the speaker will touch on the same. Maybe you can touch on that. But it's, okay, I don't know, Brandy, you can comment on the same.
If I may ask Macau, when you talk of security, what do you mean specifically?
Yeah, Mkao, you can unmute. Oh, Brandy, you can go on. Maybe.
Okay. So the application has run, just like I told you. So on the first time, it's just like this with a text, camera permission not granted. So when you click here, it will allow you. Oh, I had already run this application. Yes, should I like? I had already run this application here. Let me try doing this. Can't see. Now, let's see. Or should I just uninstall it? Then let me just uninstall it and reinstall it. Take time. So you can request for camera permission. So this dialog will pop up. So you can like allow while using the application or only this time or don't allow. What if I don't allow? So if I don't allow, this dialog will pop up and it will tell me to retry. So when I retry, I can again decide to just accept it and then it will take me to the camera screen, take a picture, and then I now have the picture appended on the image view, and I can also still take more picture on the app. That is the simple demo I had. Yeah. So to move forward, I think I've talked about these points, all of them. To move forward with my slides. So let me talk about the trends and best practices that one can follow. So one, we have request minimal number of permission. So when you talk of requesting minimal number of permission, we mean you only have to like, let me say you have an application and then you have to use camera permission. You don't have to request for the camera permission at the login stage or even at the authentication stage. You just have to wait until the user maybe navigate to that specific screen where you want to use that permission in order to request for it. And then you only have to request for the permission that you need within the application. Then associate runtime permission with specific action. That is the same, just like I've explained, whereby you only have to request permission at instance where it is needed. Then be transparent. Be transparent is you have to request for that permission in a way that is user notices that I'm using this permission within the application, even if it's location, if it's a file, yeah, consider app dependencies. So when you talk of considering app dependencies, is that sometimes you might have included other dependencies within your application. Then you find out that these dependencies require certain permission. So you have to be on the know of those permissions that dependencies require, and why do they require those permissions to be used within the application. I don't think if, yeah. So that's all I had on permission from my side. Thank you. So I think now we can take questions and yeah, and move forward. So,
Yeah, you can. There's some question in the chat box. Maybe you can start with the one for Kiprono, Hillary.
so Kiprone is saying, I was working today on camera permission, but I was facing with some issues. I think I'll liaise with Hillary to help him debug on that. Okay, Hillary. And then to Robinson say, how can someone clear a preference in an app that he or she selected, never ask again? Like, how do you clear the preference? Because most cases, even uninstall and install, the app doesn't work. Anyone who can take on that? Clearing up, maybe like they had shown a dialogue and then you had selected, the dialogue had like a checkbox and then you select one and then you said never show again, and then you want to disable that for that dialogue to reappear again in the application. And he's saying he had tried uninstalling the application and reinstalling the app and it didn't work. Anybody who has clue on how you can do that?
Okay, I can try to answer that. Are you asking this as an Android user or in the context of programming? Because if it's from a user perspective, you just want to remove permissions. Let me use an example. For example, if you download a PDF from the internet and you want to view it, then you have like a pre-installed application that can view PDFs. Then they ask you if you want to open that PDF using that app, and you say yes, and then you like select that option for always use this app to open PDFs, but you realize the app is slow and you want to use something else instead, but you have no way of selecting it. So typically, what you will do is you go to that app that you had used to open. For example, if Instagram is the app I want to revoke the permissions I had set for, you will long press on the Instagram icon, then you go to application info. There you'll be able to see app permissions and other permissions. So if you click on the app permissions section, you'll be able to see which permissions have been allowed and which ones have not been allowed. And from this point, you're able to click on the permission you're interested in. For example, if it's camera, and then the options show up again. So you have the allow while using the app, ask every time, and don't allow. Then if you click don't allow, then the next time you're trying to open the camera through Instagram, it will show you the permissions dialog again. I think that's just a simple way of doing it.
Yeah. Robinson, I hope that one answers your question. You can share the action if anyone with a question too. Okay. Anyone with a question concerning permissions? So we have a lot of, there is more on permission. You can follow through documentation and other blog sites. But for me, for my case, I followed through the Android documentation, the latest one. I don't think if I have much to talk about on permission. Yes.
Okay, I have a question. I don't know, have you ever tried to use Accompanist? There's a library, Accompanist offer for asking for permission. I don't know if you've used it before.
Accompanist.
Sorry, I didn't understand the question. What do you mean a company?
Or let me share the link for that company list. I've shared the link for the library in the chat box. Have you ever used it before?
I think this is similar to what I have in my example.
Or
Yeah.
but I think okay, it's sort of tailored for Jetpack Compose alone.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Just wanted to know, like, is there any advantage of using that instead of using the?
Instead of using the one for views,
Yeah.
I think this one. I think the advantage that this one offers is you can use it even without the having an activity. You know, with the other one, you have to override many. You have to overwrite many functions. But with this one, you can just use the remember the remember functions to declare permissions and within a composable file. But with the other one, you have to have an activity in order for you to use it. That is what makes the difference.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all for now. Thank you so much, Brandy, for making time to take us through permissions in Android. Thank you, everyone, for joining. You can, yeah, awesome. You can follow Brandy in X, GitHub, and LinkedIn. I think she has shared the social media handles. And you can also follow us